So very good afternoon to everybody. So in the previous session, we covered mutualism, where we have seen several examples. I guess the presentation and whatever running notes we are doing in the session, I have shared these. So they might upload it soon, or I don't know whether they have uploaded already. Okay, you will get those running notes. Okay, so if you miss some examples, you can note it down. All right, so let us continue with the interspecific interactions. So we have seen mutualism. Now the second type of interspecific interaction is basically amensalism, or simply put, antagonism. Okay, so antagonism, so one of the species that is interacting, it is harmed, the other one might get benefited or remains unaffected. So one of the species, one of the interacting species is negatively impacted, antagonism or amensalism. Okay, so it is a type of negative ecological interaction where one of the species is harmed, the other one might get benefited or it remains unaffected. Okay, so where one species is harmed or destroyed while the other either benefits or remains unaffected. That is your amensalism. Okay, so amensalism is considered a relationship that exists between organisms of two different species, but there can be, okay, so this kind of interaction can be within the species also. For example, competition, intraspecific competition within the same species, competition for resources. So the stronger one will be benefited, okay, or the weaker one will be negatively impacted, and then weaker one will, it will be negatively impacted. So it can be within the species also. All right, generally it is between two different species, but within a species also you can see this kind of interaction. So it is one of the modes of evolution, as the process of natural selection favors the organism that can effectively collect nutrients and energy for survival. So the stronger one will be benefited, the other one will be negatively impacted. So competition is an example for this within the species also. Okay, so amensalism, where one of the species is negatively impacted, other one might be benefited or it remains unaffected. That is the thing you have to remember. Now, so it is also referred to as asymmetrical competitive interaction. Asymmetrical competitive interaction. Okay, as it might not benefit either of the species. When there is a competition, obviously, suppose a stronger one and a weaker one is competing. Suppose two plants are there who are competing, or there are two animals who are competing. Obviously, the weaker one will lose at the end, but there will be some struggle, right? That struggle is not benefited. I mean, it is not beneficial for the stronger one also. Stronger one will also get some of the punches, right? So both will be harmed. At the end, weaker one will lose. But even the stronger one, he will get bruised, right? He will also get injured, or its productivity will also get affected somewhat. So asymmetrical competitive interaction, as the interaction might not produce any benefits to either of the species. Got it? So in most of the amensalism interactions, the species causing the harm usually produces chemicals or other products that negatively impact the other species involved. So one of the best example for this is your allopathy, that is seen in case of plants. So some of the plant species, they releases certain chemicals through roots or from leaves also, or their leaves, when they decompose, those chemicals enter into the soil. So these chemicals, they will not allow any other species in their surroundings. They will not allow any other species to grow within the surroundings. So making sure that all the nutrients or all the mineral elements that are present in their vicinity belongs to that particular species. It will not allow any other species to grow around it. Okay. So antagonistic interactions in turn involve defensive strategies. It may also involve defensive strategies in the form of chemical and physical deterrents, either to protect themselves or to extract nutrients from the environment. So the species that is releasing these chemicals will be affecting the other species. So one of the species is negatively impacted. The other remains neutral, or it might be benefited. So one example, as I mentioned, that is allopathy. Got it? Now, in amensalism, there are two types again. It can be divided into two different types. Okay, one is competition and second one is antibiosis. So antibiosis and competition. Antibiosis is by the release of certain chemicals. Okay, so competition is basically two individuals are competing for the resources. Simple. So that is why it can be sometimes within the species also. Generally, it is between the species, but it can be within the species also when the resources are very limited and population is very high. A large population is there, or the density is very high. Are you following? Competition can be there within the species also, right? So competition is negative interaction where the larger or the stronger will win at the end. It will deprive the weaker one from the resources. Okay, so whenever there is a struggle between two individuals, two species, one stronger one, another one is weaker, the stronger one will ultimately win, weaker one will lose. Either it will move away, or it will die, or it will adapt in certain way that it does not come in direct competition with the stronger one. Okay, so species involved in such interactions share a common niche in the ecosystem. So competition hai, that means they are playing a similar role, their function is similar. So obviously you have already discussed this principle, competitive exclusion. So no two species having a same niche can live together in long term. Obviously, when they do not mention the time, then this statement is true. No two species having the same niche can survive. Okay, for a short period of time when there is plenty of resources, they can live together, but in the long run, definitely there will be competition. Stronger one will eliminate the weaker one. Okay, got it? Competition. So for example, here you can see so when there is a competition between the larger species and a smaller species, larger species will deplete the resources fast. For example, here insects and goat, both of them are herbivores, both of them are primary consumers. So here the goats, they will eat very fast, they will deplete the resources affecting the insect. Okay, so larger species, however, remains unaffected by the interaction, and the interaction occurs because they share a common ecological niche. Ultimately the larger species will deplete the resources, or they will outcompete. Competition can occur between the organisms of the same species also. When the population is very large or the population density is very high, the resources are limited. Within the species also there will be competition for resources. Okay, so here in competition within amensalism, in the first type, the competition, we have the example of goats and insects. So herbivores like goats, they share the same ecological niche. Both are primary consumers. They both feed on vegetation. Okay, this results in competition between the two species for food resources. Now, the goat feeds on the same type of shrubs or grasses as the insect. The net result is scarcity of the food resources for the insect, because goats, they eat at a faster rate, they consume more. Okay, the goat remains unharmed by this interaction. Goat remains unharmed by the interaction, as the absence of interaction doesn't affect it. But the insects get deprived of the significant amount of food resources. Stronger species will negatively impact the weaker species, or sometimes it may remain, other species may get benefited, or it remains unaffected, but the weaker species, it will be negatively impacted. Got it? The example of competition, goats and insect, both are herbivores, they share same function, or they have same ecological niche. Now, same is the case with larger and smaller fishes. So larger fishes, they will feed more, depleting the food resources for the smaller fishes. So in aquatic habits, smaller fishes compete with the larger fishes for the food resource. Okay, both of them, they feed on phytoplankton and zooplankton. So larger fishes can find and feed these resources easily, which makes resources scarce for the smaller fishes. So it is negatively impacting the smaller species. Larger fishes are out competing the smaller fishes for food resources. That is another example of competition. Another example is lion and hyena. Okay, so lions and hyena both consume the same type of prey, zebra or wildebeest, uh, whatever herbivore they get, right? Buffaloes, sometimes even giraffe. So they eat same type of prey. So because lions and hyena both consume same type of prey, they are each other's most common competitors. And generally, a single lion can handle 7 to 8 hyenas easily. But hyenas, they hunt in larger packs. They hunt in packs. Okay, they are the bullies, you can say. These large packs, when they attack, even the lions, they have to run away. Okay, so because they come in, I mean, around, you can say 70, 80, hundreds, they attack. The lion has to move away from the prey. So lions are 3 to 4 times much larger than hyenas, and lions can kill larger prey like buffalo or a giraffe, right? So a group of hyenas, however, can often use teamwork to intimidate lion away from its kill. So both lions and hyenas, they steal each other's food. So a pride of lions, suppose there are a few hyenas, let's suppose say 8 to 10 hyenas, they have killed a buffalo. So a pride of lions, so suppose 7 to 8 lions, if they come and attack, these hyenas will run away. In the same way, when there are 5 to 6 lions eating on a prey, a group of hyenas, large in number, they can come and intimidate the lions. So lions will move away and hyenas will snatch their kill. So this competition is there between lions and hyenas. Okay, so lions have learned to recognize the feeding calls of hyenas after a recent kill. So hyenas, they will kill and they will call their other group members. So lions will recognize that they have killed a prey and they will go and snatch their prey. So they follow the calls to the source and chase the hyenas away from their prey. Okay. So you might think, okay, if there is plenty of prey, then there won't be any competition, but reverse has been observed. Even though there is plenty of prey, this competition is always there. So it has been observed that even though there is plenty of prey, lions and hyenas, they always compete. So this is another example of competition. Okay. Then the second type of amensalism is antibiosis. Okay, so here a chemical is involved. So one species releases a chemical into the environment which will prevent other species to grow in the surroundings. It makes sure that the resources in the surroundings belongs to itself. If there is another species, there will be competition, right? So it, ये भी एक तरह से बोल सकते हो competition ही है, but through a chemical agent. Here, one species releases certain chemicals into the environment, preventing the growth of any other species, making the resources to itself, making sure all the resources in the surroundings belongs to itself. Okay, through release of certain chemical. So antibiosis is an important type of amensalism where one species is killed by a chemical secretion while the other remains unaffected. So one is negatively impacted, other one is unaffected. The term antibiosis is derived from French term antibios to define antagonistic relationship between species colonizing similar ecological niche. So this is the basis for antibiotics. So your bacteria, fungi, uh, actinomycetes, they release secondary metabolites. So there are primary metabolites which are directly used in the growth, like proteins, fats, carbohydrates. They are directly involved in the growth of the organism, right? Then there are secondary metabolites which are waste products, right? Which are waste products developed or waste products generated during the metabolism. So these waste products have to be excreted out of the body. So these secondary metabolites, they are released into the surrounding environments and they are harmful to the other species. So antibiotics were discovered because of this effect, killing of other species. So some bacteria, actinomycetes or fungi, they release certain chemicals into the environment which kills other bacteria. Antibiotics, right? So one of the species involved produces antibiotics as a form of defensive mechanism against possible predators. Some species even produce toxins. Okay, so antibiotics thus can be negative for some of the species sharing the same habitat as the antibiotic producer. So the species that is producing antibiotics, it will prevent the growth, it will kill any other species in the surrounding, making sure that all the resources, all the food resources within the surrounding belongs to itself. So antibiotics is considered as a case of interference competition where one of the species inhibits the development of other species and prevents its access to foods and other resources in the surrounding area. So basically, the species that is producing antibiotics will kill any other species in the same habitat. So this type of interaction is common in prokaryotes and eukaryotes and have been studied in its potential to protect humans from various microbial diseases. Because some fungi also produces this. So eukaryotes में भी मिलता है तुमको. Antibiosis can be seen in eukaryotes also. So example is penicillium and bacteria. So a classical example of antibiosis is observed between fungal species penicillium and different bacterial species. So penicillium fungus, it releases penicillin. So that is a secondary metabolite. in the surrounding environment. So any bacteria which is present in the surrounding will be killed. Okay, it secretes penicillin as a secondary metabolite during the growth, so waste product. So it has antagonistic effect against other bacteria. Okay, so you can see here there is a bacterial culture. So a petri dish. So this is a petri dish in which there is a bacterial culture. So we make this kind of pattern while, so we take, there will be a loop, inoculation loop. It will be sterilized first, okay, in Bunsen burner. Then within the laminar airflow chamber, you will take the inoculum. So you will take a culture, bacterial culture, and you will, on the agar gel, right, the agar medium, you will just rub it like this. You will make this pattern. So the bacteria will be spread, and you will incubate it for 48 hours or 72 hours. Bacteria will absorb the nutrients from the agar medium and it will grow. So you will see this shaded portion, right? You can see this shaded portion, this entire ring. This is bacteria. Okay. Now what you have done after doing this, you have inoculated a fungus, penicillium fungus here. The fungus will also grow, absorbing the nutrient medium, but the fungus, what will it do? It will also secrete or release certain chemicals. It will release chemicals into the surrounding environment. So wherever this chemical is present up to certain distance, it will not allow the growth of any bacteria. You can see this entire zone is free from bacteria because the bacteria has been killed. You will not see that pattern. Got it? So this entire area has been sterilized. This entire area, the bacteria growth has been killed by the penicillin. See, the fungus, it produces secondary metabolites, that is waste product. It has to be excreted or removed from the body. Now these secondary metabolites, when they are released, they are toxic to other species. So this fungus is releasing secondary metabolites which is killing the bacteria in this area. So the chemical is moving up to this particular area. So it moves up to this particular zone, and within this zone there you can see there is no bacteria, right? You can see there is no bacteria here. This entire zone, wherever the penicillin has penetrated into the medium, you will not see any bacterial growth. So here the fungus, penicillium, is preventing the growth of bacteria. So antibiotics are basically secondary metabolites produced by prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So fungus is a eukaryote. So here penicillium has it has been cultured to produce penicillin, that is one of the first antibiotics that were used to kill microbes. So you have bacteria also, other bacteria species. You also have some actinomycetes that can produce antibiotics. So it will not allow any other species to grow in the surrounding, making sure the nutrient medium here belongs to itself. Understood? So amensalism is a negative interaction where one of the species is negatively affected, other species might be negatively affected, or it remains unaffected. So in competition, both of them are negatively affected, because obviously when they are competing, even the stronger one will have to endure some of the pain, right? Though ultimately it will win over the weaker one, but it has to endure some of the pain. Even the stronger one will get some punches, right? The weaker one will land some punches even though it loses ultimately. So there is a negative effect on both the species. In some cases, one species is negatively affected, other species might not be affected at all. For example, your goat. Here in the example, in antibiosis, penicillium is unaffected, whereas bacteria is negatively affected. Penicillium, the fungus, it is unaffected. bacteria is affected. So antibiosis is also a kind of competition, but it is through chemicals. That is why it has a separate name, antibiosis, where the other species gets killed. The chemical or the toxins that are produced, secondary metabolites that are produced, is toxic to the other species. Got it? So another example here is black walnut and herbaceous plants. So black walnut, that is Juglans nigra. Juglans regia is normal walnut. Black walnut is nigra. Juglans nigra produces a substance called as juglone that has an antagonistic effect on various herbaceous plants present in the root zone of the black walnut. So black walnut will not allow any other plants to grow in its vicinity. So this juglone, that is the chemical substance, it will prevent the growth of other plant species. The walnut produces chemical as a form of defensive mechanism against various plant pathogens. Actually, this chemical is to protect itself from pathogens, but indirectly it is also affecting the other plant species which are growing nearby. Okay, the other species which are growing near the root zone, they will be affected negatively. So allelopathy. So this is some plants releases chemicals through its roots, or when its leaves or branches they die and they get decomposed, these chemicals are released into the soil. They are harmful to the growth of other plant species. So that is allelopathy. Okay, so you can remember the examples of amensalism. Now if you are all right, I'm moving on. Amensalism, you got the examples. Now commensalism. Okay, so in commensalism, one of the species is benefited without harming or benefiting the other species. So you can say commensalism is one of the species is positively affected, other species is not affected. It is neither benefited nor harmed. So commensalism is a type of ecological interaction between two or more species where one species is benefited without either harming or benefiting the other species. Got it? Amensalism is negatively affected. Here it is benefited. In amensalism, one of the species is negatively affected, other species might be negatively affected or unaffected. Okay. In the case of competition, it can be negatively affected. In the case of antibiosis, it is unaffected. In case of competition, amensalism. In case of commensalism, one of the species is positively affected, other species might get benefited or unaffected. So it is positive interaction, but it is quite different interaction. It is quite different compared to mutualism or parasitism. Okay, commensalism is a long-term relationship. It is a long-term relationship where one species remains in interaction for their, some species they remain together for life, for a very long period. Basically long-term interaction. So here the larger one is called as a host and the smaller one is called as commensal. Host and mutualist. Host and commensal. Larger one is called as a host, smaller one is called as commensal. So organism that provides the benefit, the organism that provides the benefit but are unaffected is the host, and the organism which is benefited from the interaction is called as commensal. So generally the smaller one is benefit. Okay, so host is unaffected, but the commensal it gets benefit. So best example here is the remora fish. तो याद रखना नाम remora fish. So these remora fish, they have a sucker on the top. So you can see there is a sucker on the top of their head. So they ride on the backs of shark and other fish to get the food. So whenever shark hunts and it eats some of the pieces, okay, they get, I mean, they fall. So when we are eating, some of the food falls, right? Sometimes it might spill on your shirt or something. In the same way, when the shark is eating, some of the pieces may get away. It will eat the chunk, but some of the pieces it get dispersed in water. So these fishes, they remain below the shark, and whatever pieces they are left, they will eat. So they will hitch a free ride and they will get food. So these fishes, they will attach at the bottom of the shark. They will hitch a ride, and whenever the shark feeds, whatever the food spills, they will feed on that. So remoras have evolved a flat oval sucking disc like structure on the top of their heads. So with the help of these suckers, they will attach themselves to the shark. So remoras have evolved a flat oval sucking disc like structure on the top of their heads that clings to the body of their host. They eat the scrap, whatever is left or whatever is spilled over, some small pieces or fragments, they will feed on that. Got it? Commensalism. One of the species is positively affected or positively benefited. Other species, it remains unaffected. Then there is another interaction, proto-cooperation. So it is a type of ecological interaction where both the species involved in the interaction are benefited. So one of the species is benefited, other species may be benefited or it remains unaffected. But here in mutualism, such kind of cooperation was necessary for survival, but here it is not necessary for survival. For example, the interaction between great egret, Ardia alba. So this small crane, okay, great egret, crane-like bird, so which eats the insect left behind by grazing mammals or soil organisms stayed by ploughing. So you might have seen after a tractor plows the field, so when the soil gets overturned, some insects they are exposed. So these birds, they eat those insects. Okay. So this is a example of amensalism where both are benefited, but it is not obligatory. Okay. Then now we are entering into predation. So commensalism and amensalism is over. Predation. So here, in case of predation, generally the predator is larger than prey. So predation is a relationship in which members of one species consume the members of another species. They attack and they eat so they will kill the host. So predation and parasitism, the main difference. So here the interaction is one of the species gets benefited, other species is negatively affected. So here the predator is getting food, prey is getting killed. In parasitism, the parasite gets nutrition from the host is negatively affected. Right. So in predation and parasitism, the main difference is, like in case of predation, the host is killed immediately. In parasitism, host is not killed immediately. Parasitism, the parasite is much smaller than the host. Here, in case of predation, generally the predator is larger than the prey, but sometimes even larger prey can be killed by the predators. You might have seen buffaloes or giraffe is killed by 2 to 3 lions, they will kill the giraffe. So predator and prey relationships account for most energy transfer in the food chains and food webs. So lion and zebra, here the example, lion is killing a zebra, baby zebra. Generally the predator will also attack those individuals which are smaller in size and easily killed. You might have seen in a herd of your wildebeest, so those who have given birth, so those babies which are not yet ready to run away, okay, those are killed. You might have seen that, right? Generally they attack the newborns or those who are weak, they get attacked, right? So predator also sees that easily, though those individuals which can be easily caught or which can be easily hunted, they will search for those. Okay, so lion and zebra, lynx and snowshoe hare. So this example we have seen the population prey and predator dynamics. So here is a lynx which is attacking the snowshoe hare. So in predation, you can see this kind of interactions, the population dynamics. A predator-prey relationship tend to keep populations of both the species in balance. So if the prey species population increases, slowly you will see the predator species population also increases because it has plenty of food. So it will multiply itself. After eating, it will reproduce. So when the prey population decreases, slowly you will see the predator population also comes down because non-availability of prey. So this kind of relation we have already seen in the previous sessions. Now in the predator-prey example, one factor limits the growth of the other factor. So if the prey population reduces, predator population also reduces. Prey population increases, predator population also slowly increases with a lag. So as the prey population decreases, predator population also begins to decrease as well. So here the prey population is the limiting factor. If you have plenty of prey available, plenty of prey is there, the predator population also increases. If the prey population decreases, slowly predator population also comes down. Okay, so here adaptations, one of the, just to mention, so here the prey to escape the predator, they have certain adaptations. You can see here it is same as the color of snow so that it can hide, camouflage. So generally the species that lives in the tundra region or in the snow region, they have this adaptations. So their fur color changes with the seasons so that they can easily hide and prevent attack from the predators. Now we are moving on to the last one, that is parasitism. So parasitism is interaction where one of the species is positively affected, other species is negatively affected. It is same as predation, but the main difference is in case of parasitism, the parasite is much smaller than the host and it does not kill the host immediately. The relationship is long term. So parasitism is a type of ecological association between the species where one species benefits from the association at the expense of other species without killing the organism, at least not immediately. It might cause disease or other harmful effect. Ultimately it may lead to weakness and death of the host, but immediately it will not kill, as in the case of predation. So one is positively benefited, other one is negatively affected. So the benefited species is the parasite, the affected species is the negatively affected species is the host. So organism that obtains benefit from the association is called as a parasite, whereas the organism that is harmed is called as a host. So these are very basic things you know already, right? That is why I'm just going through it, not spending much time, right? So the term parasite is derived from, so here is an extra information, parasitos. So that means one that eats at the table of another, so one that is living at the expense of another. So it is indicating the feeding habit of the organism. So all infectious agents causing illness in different group of living beings are your parasites. Okay, so example, in case of humans it is plasmodium, so malaria, plasmodium vivax, plasmodium falciparum, right? So malaria causing protozoa. So plasmodium is an endoparasite that feeds on the red blood cells of the mammals, birds and reptiles. So here plasmodium depends on another species to transfer or to enter into the main host. So here we have vector. So here it will use Anopheles mosquito as a vector. Okay. So plasmodium depends upon a third organism for transmission from one host to another. So here the female mosquito, female Anopheles mosquito is the vector which transfers the parasite. So plasmodium exists in two different hosts. Both of the hosts are essential for completion of the life cycle, right? So part of life cycle is within the mosquito and the rest of it is in the main host, that is the humans. So another example is tapeworm, Taenia solium. So Taenia solium, so the pigs that are not grown in well, uh, you can say well sanitized pig farms. Okay, so sometimes pigs, these are coprophagous, right? So they eat on the feces of other species also. So if they are not pork, if it is not properly cooked, if the pig is affected by parasite, if it is not properly cooked and eaten, so the parasite will enter humans body of the human. So Taenia solium or tapeworm. So these are flatworms. Okay, so these flatworm parasites can infect human digestive tract, okay, where they absorb the nutrients from the host food, potentially causing weight loss and other health issues. So they remain in the intestine and they will keep absorbing the nutrients from the host intestine. So host will get weakened. So pork should be properly cooked before eating. Then we have head lice. जुआ बोलते हैं head lice. So Pediculus humanus capitis. So these, they suck the blood. So these parasite infest human scalp, feeding on the blood and causing itching and discomfort. So these are examples of your parasites. So parasitism, right? So these are your interspecific interactions with examples. Please cover as many examples as possible. If you find any other example, do include that your notes, because in the options sometimes they will give you those examples which you have not read, so you are not sure whether there is commensalism between those. Some of the examples are such that you might have not ever heard of those. In animal kingdom there are many such interactions, so you might not have even heard invertebrates, so you'll get confused in the options. Okay, so cover as many examples as possible. Now we are entering into another section. So this is ecosystem ecology. Now, in case of population, okay, and in case of community, the interaction was between the biotic individuals or biotic parts. That means between two different species. Okay, so here ecosystem is basically right here. We are studying the interaction of organisms within themselves and with the abiotic environment or the abiotic factors. So biotic and abiotic factors, they are interacting. The biotic factors are interacting with the environment and with themselves. So ecosystem ecology, here abiotic factors, they come in along with the biotic. When we were discussing individual, population, communities, only we were talking about the biotic factors. But when we start community, when we start ecosystem, we have biotic plus abiotic factors. So what is an ecosystem? So first we will see the definition, who coined this term and all those introduction part. Then we can enter into the main parts. So an ecosystem is fundamental functional unit of an environment where the living and non-living creatures interact with one another, or living and non-living factors, they interact with one another, both of which are essential for continuation of life on Earth. Now obviously, see, biotic factors, they cannot survive without abiotic factors. Like your plants and animals, they cannot survive without soil or temperature, air, water. They cannot survive without abiotic factors. Right? Plants require water, plants require carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, plant requires light for photosynthesis. So once it produces the food, the energy will be transferred to other members in the community, right? So biotic and abiotic factors that depend upon each other. Okay, so all the living beings, whether it is plants, animals, and microorganisms, they depend upon non-living substances for their survival and to maintain the equilibrium in the natural environment. You know this, right? So even biotic communities, so plants, they depend upon microorganisms. There is interaction between biotic factors. Microorganisms, they decompose food, so decompose the organic matter. That organic matter will be converted into inorganic nutrients, inorganic nutrient elements which are absorbed again by the plant. Okay, so plant community depends upon microbial community. Microbial community, for their food source, for their carbon, they depend upon the plant community. Animals, they depend upon the plant community, right? So there is interaction between the biotic communities, but there is also interaction between, so plants, they cannot survive without using abiotic factors: light, water, carbon dioxide, inorganic nutrients, that is soil. So biotic and abiotic factors, they interact, they cannot survive without each other. Okay, how these biotic factors are interacting with the abiotic component is basically your ecosystem ecology. Okay, so Arthur Tansley, he used the term ecosystem for the first time. So ecosystem are parts of nature where living organisms interact among themselves and with their physical environment. Okay, so living species ability to exist in the surroundings depends heavily on the surrounding living and non-living elements. So survivability of the plant species depends upon the microbes also, that is living community, and also abiotic factors, light, water. So plants, they cannot survive without microorganisms, as well as they cannot survive without abiotic factors. All right, you understood the statement, right? And again, without plants, the entire food chain will fall apart. So Odom, he is considered as father of modern ecology. He emphasized more on ecosystem, right? So according to Odom, ecosystem is the basic functional unit of nature, including both living and non-living elements, each interacting with other. So living and non-living elements are interacting with other and influencing each other's properties necessary for the maintenance and development of the entire ecosystem, right? Now, ecosystem is composed of biotic community integrated with its physical environment. That is, they're interlinked, integrated. They cannot live without abiotic factors. So biotic and abiotic factors are strongly interlinked. Now, biotic and abiotic factors we have already discussed in the first class. So I told you later also the same thing will repeat. There we have discussed biotic and abiotic factors. So I will not go through all these things again. So same biotic and abiotic factors. So producers, consumers, detrivores, right? In abiotic factors, you have light, you have temperature, how it is affecting the organisms. You have already discussed. So I'm not going to that. Now we are now moving on to main thing, functions of an ecosystem, and then we will move on to food chain, food web, all those things. So what are the important functions of ecosystem? First important function is production, food production. So plants, primary producers, they utilize the sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and they will produce energy and store it. The free energy is stored in the form of potential energy. That means it has the potential to be utilized as energy source. So this food that is prepared by the plants will be eaten by the herbivores, then herbivores will be eaten by the carnivores, and in that way the energy will be transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level. Food production, and second important function is energy flow. How the energy is transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level. Okay, so what is trophic level? The position of the individual organism in the food chain is called as trophic level. So we'll discuss the trophic level later. So food production and energy flow, these are the most important functions of your ecosystem. Another important function is decomposition. So plants, animals, or whatever organism is there, it will ultimately die and it has to be decomposed. So organic matter has to be mineralized. Organic matter will be decomposed into inorganic nutrients. And this process is called as mineralization. So organic matter, when it decomposition happens, aerobic. Okay, decomposition is an aerobic reaction. So in the presence of oxygen, organic matter will be decomposed into carbon dioxide and water vapor. Along with that, inorganic, your elements will be released into the soil. So these elements are absorbed by the plants again. So your nitrates, sulfates, they will be released into the soil and they will be absorbed by the plants. They are essential nutrients for the plants: sulfur, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So this process where organic matter is decomposed and inorganic nutrients are released into the soil, this process is called as mineralization. So decomposition is a very important function because it will continue the nutrient recycling. Okay, so decomposition and nutrient cycling are connected with each other. Okay, then last is ecological succession. Okay, so let us see them one by one quickly. So any ecosystem's ability to exist and operate depends upon availability of solar energy. So sun's energy, solar energy is the primary source of energy in the ecosystem. So the kinds of plant that exist there, okay, they have impact on the primary production. So whether it is grasses or whether they are trees. So while roots pull the minerals from the soil, green leaves prepare the meals. Basically photosynthesis, we are discussing photosynthesis. Plants produce the food by utilizing the nutrients from the soil. Water is absorbed from the soil. Carbon dioxide enters into the plants through stomata in gaseous form, and light energy is utilized. So that is why it is called as photosynthesis. So again, herbivores, they eat the plants. So primary producers are plants. So energy is produced in the ecosystem by the primary producers or the autotrophs. Then this energy is transferred from one trophic level to another trophic level. So this is called as energy flow. So the major energy source of all ecosystems is solar radiation. So autotrophs, that is plants, okay, they are self-sustaining. They can produce their own food. Other organisms depends upon the plant. Other organisms, herbivores or indirectly the carnivores, they depend upon the primary producers. So autotrophs, they are not dependent upon their food on other animals in the food chain. Generally, for nutrients, they are dependent upon microbes. So autotrophs or self-sustaining organisms in the ecosystem use sun's energy to produce their food. Carbon dioxide and water is taken from the nature. Autotrophs manufacture more sophisticated chemical compounds such as proteins, lipids, carbohydrates. So flow of energy from the sun to the producer, then from the producers to herbivores, then from herbivores to carnivores. So this is unidirectional. So energy will flow in one direction. So you have producers, and you have primary consumers. So primary, I am writing like this. So primary consumers are herbivores. So from then you have secondary consumers, that is carnivores, and then it will be eaten by tertiary consumers. Then you have apex predator and all. So energy is flowing in one direction. So unidirectional flow of energy. And when any of these individuals at any trophic level, when they die, they are decomposed by the microorganisms, and again these nutrients are released into the soil, taken up by the plants. Nutrient recycling is going on. Okay, so approximately 1 to 2% of the sun's radiation, it is utilized by the plants for photosynthesis. So this is average depending upon the conditions. Okay, but it can vary from 0.8 6% also. But generally, on an average, 1 to 2% of the solar radiation is used by the plants to produce food through photosynthesis. Okay, then we have decomposition. So decomposers break down the complex organic matter into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, and nutrients. So whenever organic matter is there, organic matter will be decomposed into carbon dioxide plus water vapor, plus there is additional nutrients are released into the soil, because organic matter has, obviously it will have nitrogen, so it is some plant or animal matter, right? So animal might have accumulated lot of nutrients throughout its life. Plant might have accumulated lot of elements during its lifespan. So these elements are again ultimately released into the soil. They are again released into the soil. So they will be recycled. Again, they will be taken up by the plants. So decomposers, they play a very important role. Organic matter is broken down and it is converted into inorganic matter. So this process of conversion of organic to inorganic nutrients, this is called as mineralization. Remember it, mineralization. So dead plant remains, leaf, stem, bark, okay, or animal, or including the fecal matter, it is all detritus, dead organic matter. Okay, it is the raw material for decomposition process. So decomposition process starts from here. Dead organic matter or fecal matter, dead plant or animal matter, it is called as detritus. From here your decomposition process starts. So there are many steps in decomposition. So main steps are fragmentation. Now in fragmentation, what is happening? Your organic matter is broken down into smaller pieces. So insects or other macro organisms, they will break down, insects or earthworms, they will break down the food into smaller pieces. Okay, fragmentation. So after fragmentation, some of the soluble nutrients, if there are any soluble elements, they will be leached by the percolating water. So water may remove these nutrients to the lower layers. So leaching can happen and it will remove some of the soluble nutrients to the lower layers which are not available to the plant's roots. Now, catabolism includes enzymatic breakdown of this organic matter by bacteria or fungi. It is enzymatic breakdown. Ultimately, organic matter, when it decomposes to a certain extent, ultimately it will form humus. So humus is fairly resistant material. It will not decompose easily further. Okay, humus is almost resistant part which is not easily, it will not easily break down further. Okay, so and mineralization is the process where organic matter is decomposed and inorganic nutrients are again released into the soil. That is called as mineralization. So it will happen in different steps. These are the different steps in decomposition. It is given elaborately in the notes. Please go through it. And again, last function of your ecosystem is nutrient cycling. So plants, they accumulate lot of elements during its lifespan. Animals also, they take food and they accumulate lot of elements. So they have accumulated elements from the biotic or abiotic environment. So animals, when they eat, herbivores, they accumulate the elements from the plants. Plants, they have accumulated from the soil. So ultimately, the plants and animals that have accumulated all these elements or nutrients from the soil, it has to go back. So when the plants and animals die, they are decomposed and these elements are again released into the soil. Again, they are taken up by the plants. Right? So this exchange of elements between the biotic and abiotic environment or biotic and abiotic components, exchange of elements or movement of elements between the biotic or abiotic, from plants. The plants take up nutrients from the soil. So plants and animals, so plants are eaten by animals. So animals and plants, when they die, they go back to the soil again, right? Plants absorb these elements from the soil. Again, when they die, decomposition happens and again these nutrients are released into the soil. So the movement of these elements between the biotic and abiotic components is called as nutrient cycling. So we'll discuss this more in the nitrogen cycle and carbon cycle. So nutrient cycle is a concept that describes the transfer of nutrients from physical environments to the living beings and back again to the physical environment. So this is very important or essential for the ecology. So ecosystem survives on this nutrient cycling. So this is one of the most crucial function of the ecosystem. Okay. Got it. So we have covered the important functions of the ecosystem. Now let us, so last one, this is the last, sorry, nutrient cycling was second last. Ecological succession. Okay, so this is the last one, ecological succession. So it is a process of directional change in plants on an ecological time scale. Now That means over a period of time. Now, this is not a very short period, but a longer period. Over a considerable period of time, you will see a directional change in the diversity or the composition of a species at a particular place. So succession is a universal process of unidirectional or directional change in plants on an ecological time scale. So basically, we'll learn this more when we go through ecological succession. So we'll discuss that separately, that particular topic. So you see here you can see there is transformation happening, but it does not happen over a short period of time. In the diagram you can see, so it begins, so your ecological succession begins from bare rock. So this rock, it will undergo weathering, okay, and slowly fragmentation will happen, and lichens, they have the ability to grow on the bare rocks, and also they produces some of the chemicals which help in breakdown of the rock. So they also help in chemical weathering. They also help in by producing certain chemicals, but actually a biological weathering ka part. And they produce organic acids which help in weathering. So it is biological organism. Lichens are the association between fungus and algae. So they grow on bare rocks. So lichens, they grow on the bare rocks, and slowly this organic matter, it will accumulate, and small annual plants and lichens, they will start to occupy the area. So as the weathering continues, and lichens, they contribute to weathering, and other small grasses, they also start to grow in that area, and you will see slowly the bare rock will be transformed into an area where small annual plants and lichens, they are growing. Okay, slowly as the time goes on or the time progresses, you will see this area will be converted into grasses, and they are covered by grasses and perennials. Okay, so they are again replaced by grasses, shrubs, and trees such as pines. So you can see some species are replacing the earlier species, right? So the composition is changing. Okay, so these grasses, shrubs, and trees such as pines, they are ultimately replaced by climax species. Okay, so climactic or climax community. So this is the more matured or climax community that will occupy the area ultimately after a long period. So it takes hundreds of years. It does not happen over a short period of time. So this process of directional change that is happening, so this is called as succession. So the cycle is repeated. So generally it happens when there is a natural disaster or man-made disaster. So fire happens, or volcanic eruption, or something natural disaster happens, you will see this kind of succession. So cycle is repeated until a stable adult community arises with one group displacing another. So you see one group of plants, they are replaced by other group of plants. Now this will happen until you have a climax community, a mature climax community. And the beginning community to occupy the area, first community to occupy the area, it is known as the pioneer, the beginner. Okay, final community that settles in that area, the mature community, is called as climax community. On all these stages in between the pioneer and the climax community, these are called as successional or serial stages. So there is a directional change in the composition of the species in the area. So this is ecological succession. It happens with the time. So the community which is living there, it will change the environment which is more suitable to the next species. So there will be changes in the environment because of the growth of a particular community. It will change the environment so that it becomes more habitable by the other species. So we'll discuss this in detail later. There will be a separate class for ecological succession. We'll discuss that in that particular class. For now, these are the important functions of ecosystem. Now, types of ecosystem, quickly just let us go through this schematic diagram. So we'll discuss biomes in detail. That will be sufficient for explaining this the types of ecosystems. So ecosystems, when taken on large scale, they are biomes. So natural ecosystems, and you have man-made ecosystems. So natural ecosystems, again, we have two types, that is terrestrial and aquatic. In terrestrial, we have forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, and desert ecosystem. Further, it can be classified into three types. Aquatic ecosystem, again, depending upon the salt content, you have marine and freshwater ecosystem. So freshwater, again, you have two types based on the speed of, or the flow of water. So we have lotic, where we have flowing water. Lotic means flowing water. So river, stream, and springs, they are the example of lotic ecosystem. Then we have lentic, where the water is stagnant. So you have lake or pond or swamp. So these are the natural ecosystems. Artificial or man-made ecosystems, we have agricultural fields. That is an artificial ecosystem where the diversity is very less. All the area is it is occupied by the same species. There is no, biodiversity is almost negligible. Uniformity is there. Agricultural fields is an example of artificial ecosystem, man-made ecosystem. Aquarium is another example. Zoological park, that is an example of artificial or man-made ecosystem. Okay. Now let us discuss some of the important concepts in the ecosystem. So these are very small concepts. Quickly we'll go through. You might have already covered these or read these in the school. Okay. You have to remember the examples. Okay. That is the important part. Main concept in short and examples. That will be sufficient. Okay. So first concept is food chain. Okay, food chain and food web we'll discuss here. So food chain. Now everything starts, the food chain, it starts from generally your producers, right? So sun is the ultimate source of energy. The utilizing the sunlight, plants will prepare the food. So food chain is the energy transfer link between living organisms. Energy transfer link. So producers are eaten by herbivores. So energy is transferred from plants to herbivores. Then herbivores are eaten by carnivores. Energy is transferred from herbivores to carnivores. Carnivore will be eaten by tertiary consumer, right? So in this way, the energy will be transferred from one organism to another organism. So food chain starts with the producers, then moves to consumers and finishes with decomposers. So each step in the food chain is called as trophic level. So trophic level is the position of the organism in the food chain. Where does it fit in the food chain? So that is the trophic level. Okay, position that it occupies, position that an organism occupies in the food chain is called as trophic level. So food chain is the energy transfer link. It is the energy transfer link between the organisms. Okay, so organisms in the ecosystem are related to each other. They depend upon each other through feeding mechanism or trophic levels. They are interlinked. So small insects feed on the green plants. Insect is the primary consumer. Green plants are the producers. Okay, so insects are eaten by smaller animals. These smaller animals are eaten by larger animals. So in this way, energy transfer will be happening. So energy transfer link is called as food chain. So during the process of energy transfer, some energy is lost into the system. Okay, so in the form of heat, some energy will be lost into the atmosphere, into the system in the form of heat. Now, you might have heard of perpetual motion machine. Right? Perpetual motion machine. Many people have tried to build it. That means a machine which does not utilize any source of energy and it is continuously moving. Right? So this is against the law of physics. So when a machine is moving, obviously there will be wind. Okay. So when you're moving it, there will be friction. Some of the energy is lost in the form of heat generated due to friction or resistance due to wind. So ultimately, a machine which is moving on its own, ultimately it will slow down and come to a halt. You cannot move a machine without using outside energy source. Continuously, people have tried, but till now they have not been. I mean, it is because it goes against all the laws of physics. So in the same way, when energy is transferring from one organism to another organism, there is definitely loss of energy in between. So in the form of heat, metabolic heat, and organism also utilizes some of the energy for its needs. Suppose insect, it moves around, so it requires to use that energy. So whatever it has eaten, whatever plant it has eaten, whatever food it has taken in, right, that food will be metabolized. Some of it will be used for its own activity, for moving, for jumping, for eating, for finding prey, or for finding uh, mate. It will utilize some of the energy. Rest of the energy, it will be lost as heat. Only 10% will be transferred to the next trophic level. Okay, so at each step, 90% of the energy will be lost, either in the form of heat, and organism will also utilize for its own needs. So only 10% of energy transfer will be there. So that is why in a food chain, maximum you can have only 4 to 5 links, not more than that. So first type of food chain is grazing food chain. So it starts with green plants at the base, and primary consumer is herbivore. So it starts with grass. Grass will be eaten by grasshopper. Grasshopper will be eaten by frog. ये primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, and you have quaternary, eagle. In the water, you have phytoplanktons. So these are diatoms, dinoflagellates, algae, right? They are eaten by zooplanktons, shrimp-like small creatures. They're eaten by fish. Then the fish will be eaten by larger fish or seal. Then that will be eaten by great white shark or the larger fish. Okay. So this is the example of terrestrial or the food chain on the land. Aquatic may, in water, you have phytoplanktons. They're eaten by zooplanktons, shrimp-like creatures. They're eaten by smaller fish. They are further eaten by even larger fish. Ultimately, you have apex predator, that is great white shark. So this is grazing food chain in water. Because we call it grazing food chain because the the food chain starts from the producers. Here the phytoplanktons, they will carry on photosynthesis. The grazing food chain, and the second type of food chain is detritus food chain. Here the food chain starts from dead organic matter. In grazing food chain, the food chain starts from producers, plants, algae, or phytoplanktons. That is the beginning. So producers are the beginning. So food chain starts from the producers. That is grazing food chain. When the food chain starts from the dead organic matter, it is called as detritus food chain. Now, for example, here, say you have a litter, that is dead plant material, leaves. They are eaten by earthworm. Earthworm will be eaten by snake. That snake will be eaten by eagle. So this is also a food chain. But here, the first or the food chain begins with dead organic matter, not from plants. Similarly, second example, see mangrove leaves. Mangroves, they also produce litter. That will be dead organic matter. It will be eaten by microorganisms. That will be eaten by crab. Crab will be eaten by smaller fish. They will be eaten by larger fish. Or another example, dead organic matter eaten by worms. Worms are eaten by frog. Frog is eaten by snake. Snake is eaten by hawk. So when the food chain starts from dead organic matter, it is called as a detritus food chain. When the food chain starts from producers, that is called as grazing food chain. Understood? Easy to follow. These are very basics. You might have already studied these in the school, right? And we have another type of food chain, that is parasitic food chain. Okay, so this is called as parasitic food chain. So here, in case of normal food chain, you see that the organism in the lower trophic level is eaten away. It is killed and eaten away by the organism at the higher trophic level. Right? Frog is eaten by snake. Snake is killed and eaten by eagle. Right? Plants are killed and grazed by herbivores. So in the normal food chain, you see the lower trophic organisms in the lower trophic level are killed by the organisms and eaten away by the organisms in the higher trophic level. But in parasitic food chain, they are not killed, right? In parasitic food chain, it is a type of food chain that starts from herbivore, but the food energy transfers from larger organism to the smaller organism without killing, as in the case of normal food chain where the predator kills the prey. Okay, so here normally in the grazing food chain, you see the lower trophic level organisms in the lower trophic level like zooplanktons, they are eaten by small fish. Small fish will be eaten by large fish. You see, as you go in the food chain, you see the size of the organism is also increasing, right? So your secondary consumer is bigger than primary consumer. Primary consumer is insect, secondary consumer is frog. Snake is larger than frog, right? The size of the organism is also increasing as you go to the next trophic level. In parasitic food chain, reverse happens. Size of the organism decreases as you move to the higher trophic level. So, and there is no killing here. They are not killed and eaten. There is a parasitic relationship. So parasites, they don't kill the host. There is a long-term relationship. So larger animals are known to be the host, and the smaller organisms which acquire nutrition from the host are known to be the parasites. So you see here the example is producer is at the bottom. So this is an inverted pyramid. You see the shape. inverted pyramid hai because the number of organism increases in the higher trophic levels. So as you go from one trophic level to another trophic level, the number of organisms will increase. Generally, in the number of pyramids, generally you have, as you go higher, you have less and less individuals in the higher trophic level. So at the bottom you have, in the pyramid of numbers, you have more number of producers, then you have less number of primary consumers, even less number of secondary consumers. Generally that is the case. But in the parasitic food chain, reverse is the case. The number of pyramid of numbers is inverted here. So you have one tree. On that tree you have many fruit eating birds. Many fruit eating birds are staying on that tree and surviving on the fruits. Then these birds, they may house many lice, bugs. Birds के feather में attached to their skin, they will have many bugs and lice. Then again, these bugs and lice, they may have many hyperparasites. So these are parasites which are living on the birds. Then you have hyperparasites. These are microorganisms living inside these bugs. Okay, so this is a parasitic food chain where it is inverted pyramid. So this, in this type of food chain, either the producer or the consumer is parasitized. Therefore, the food passes on to even smaller organism. Okay, to the smaller living organism. So tree is very large. Birds are comparatively smaller. Many birds are living on the same tree. On these birds, there are many parasites. And within these parasites, there are different types of organisms. So these are hyperparasites living on the bugs and lice. So that was food chain and types of food chain. So we have seen grazing food chain, both on land and in water, aquatic. And we have seen detrital or detritus food chain, and we have seen parasitic food chain. Right. Then what is food web? In very simple words, when many food chains are interconnected, it is called as food web. In simple words, that is food web. So simple food chains, they rarely occur in nature. Normally it is very complicated. Simple food chains like a straight line, it doesn't occur like that in nature. There are many interconnections. So the same organism may operate at more than one trophic level. So that insect can be directly, it can be eaten by frog, or it can be eaten by another mammal like rat, or it can be directly eaten by a snake or a lizard. Right? It is not that the insect will be eaten only by the frog. It can be eaten by a lizard, or it can be eaten by some other rat or shrew, or directly eaten by snake. Right? So it may be eaten up by several organisms of a higher trophic level. इंसेक्ट को सिर्फ फ्रॉग ही खाएगा ऐसा नहीं है ना. So the size of the food, availability of the food, they generally determine the relationship. So web means interconnected network, right? So web means a network. Food web can be defined as a network of interconnected food chains. So many food chains are interconnected. There is cross link. Okay. So to form a number of feeding relationships amongst different organisms of a biotic community. Interconnected food chains is food web. So same food source may be a part of more than one food chain. Suppose the insect thing. So insect will be eaten, insect will eat plants, the insect will be eaten by frog, frog will be eaten by snake, snake will be eaten by your hawk. Right? Now another food chain is there. Plants, plants will be eaten by insects. That insect might be eaten by a rat. That rat might be eaten by another, you say, fox or some other animal. That will be eaten by some other predator. So you see two different chains. The insect is a part of two different food chains. Right? So this is possible when resource is at the lower trophic level. Okay, same food resource may be a part of more than one food chain. So this will happen when the resource, the insect, is at lower trophic level, that is primary consumer. Okay, so we find various food chains are interlinked together to form food web. Now you can see an example here, right? So plants, primary producers. So plants are eaten by either butterfly, again squirrels, frogs, again birds, rodents, or you have mammals like deer. Again, now you see this insect, it might be consumed. Let me, the insect might be consumed by directly, a rabbit can eat it, or a crow, it is a type of crow, raven, it can eat it, or it can be eaten by lizard. You see, this is forming a link for three different food chains, right? Now this rabbit, this can be eaten by a bobcat, or it can be directly eaten by mountain lion, or it can be eaten by coyote, that is a type of fox. You see, so generally the organism at the lower trophic level, it can form part of multiple food chains, so they are interconnected, right? Now you have an idea, right? I guess you have understood what is a food web. Now how does this help? Now food web, so suppose if this rabbit does not have access to suppose the mountain lion, if it does not have access to rabbit, it can eat this marten, or it can eat this ringtail. So it does not have to solely depend upon the rabbit, right? So it has alternate sources. If it does not have one prey, it will eat some other prey. So it will provide an alternate source. So food web is basically a survival. It helps in survival of the organisms, because if they does not have one prey, they can depend upon another prey, they can eat some other thing. So it will help in survival of the organisms. So food web comprises of all the food chains in a single ecosystem. Now here you can say food web in the aquatic ecosystem. So here you can see phytoplanktons, they are eaten by zooplankton. Okay, this phytoplankton can be directly eaten by krill, right? And this fish, it can eat either zooplankton or this krill. Then it will be eaten either by sea leopard or by bird, or it can be directly consumed by blue whale. So there is interconnections, right? In the aquatic ecosystem also you have food web. That is an example. Now a food web is an illustration that depicts feeding links within a community. If any intermediate food chain is removed, the succeeding links of the chain will be affected largely. Now the importance is that food web provides more than one alternative for food to most of the organisms in an ecosystem. So if it does not have one type of food, it can feed on another alternative. It does not solely depend upon one source. If it does not have one source, it will, if a coyote does not have a rabbit, it can attack another herbivore, it can attack a deer, right? So it does not have to depend upon one source only, and it will prevent from extinction. So basically it is necessary for the survival, it increases the survival rate. All right, so significance of food web: many organisms in the lower trophic level in the food chain can feed higher trophic level members. So frog can feed directly a snake. A frog can also feed a bird, crow, right? So presence of complex food web promotes ecosystem stability. Okay. So food webs prevent famine and aid in population growth of endangered animals. So animals, they need not depend upon only one food. If it does not have one type of food, it can depend upon another animal. It can kill another animal and feed on it. So it helps in their survival. So food webs are useful in understanding how population disruptions caused by overhunting, poaching, and global warming and other destruction leads to food scarcities and extinction. So if you understand food web, you can understand how one factor is impacting another factor or other factors. Extinction of one species can affect the entire ecosystem. Right. So that was your food web, interlinked food chains. Now the last topic, that is ecological pyramids. Now, what are ecological pyramids? Basically, these are graphical representations of the relation between various living beings. Okay. So graphical representation of relationship between various living beings at different trophic levels within a food chain. So graphical representation of the relation between organisms at different trophic levels within a food chain. Trophic level क्या होता है? Trophic level is the position of the organism in the food chain. Okay, trophic level is the position the organism occupies in the food chain. So ecological pyramid is a graphical representation of the relationship between organisms at different trophic levels in a food chain. Understood? It is just a graphical representation of a relationship between different organisms at each trophic level in a food chain. Now, it is called a pyramid because the shape is generally of pyramid. So the concept was introduced by Charles Elton, a pioneer British ecologist. Okay. Now there are three types. So you have pyramids of biomass, pyramids of energy, ecological pyramid of numbers. Okay. So three types of pyramids are there: pyramid of numbers, pyramid of biomass, pyramid of energy. All right. Now, pyramid of energy is always upright. So pyramid of energy is always upright. Whereas pyramid of numbers can be upright or it can be inverted, as in the case of parasites. Parasitic food chain mein you have inverted pyramid. Tree was there. On that tree, many birds were dependent. On these birds, many parasites were there. On these parasites, many hyperparasites were there. So it was an inverted pyramid. So pyramid of numbers can be upright or it can be inverted. Pyramid of biomass can be upright or it can be inverted, both. I will explain it later. But pyramid of energy is always upright because at the base you have highest energy. As you go from one trophic level to another trophic level, the energy is lost. Only 10% will be transferred to each level. 90% will be lost. So highest energy will be at the base. As you move to the higher trophic levels, the amount of energy that is transferred will be reduced. So only 10% will be transferred to the next trophic level. So whatever energy here it is present, only 10% of that will be transferred to the next level, because most of the energy is lost in the form of heat and utilized by the organisms for its metabolic needs. Only 10% will be transferred. So energy of pyramid is always upright. It can never be inverted because energy reduces as you move to the higher trophic level. So it is always upright. Whereas whereas pyramid of numbers and biomass can be both upright and inverted. We will see the examples. Okay, so ecological pyramid consists of several horizontal bars representing each trophic level, okay, which are arranged sequentially. Okay, from producer you have primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary, from producers at the bottom to other trophic levels. Okay, so length of each horizontal bar depicts the total number of individuals at each trophic level. So wider the bar means more number of individuals at that particular trophic level. तो जितना ब्रॉड होगा तुम्हारा बार उतना ज्यादा नंबर है इंडिविजुअल्स का. Okay, so there are three types: pyramid of numbers, pyramid of biomass, and pyramid of energy. So pyramid of numbers and biomass may be upright or inverted depending upon the nature of food chain, but pyramid of energy is always upright. Remember this is important. Okay, now we will discuss each type of pyramid in detail. Now pyramid of numbers. So pyramid of numbers, upright. So here is a grazing food chain. Okay, it shows the relative number of organisms at each stage of food chain. So you have more number of producers, then the number of primary consumers is less than the number of producers. The carnivores which are eating on herbivores are still less, and top carnivore is few in numbers. So as you go from producers to top carnivore, the number of individuals at each trophic level reduces. So pyramid of numbers can be either upright or it can be inverted also. So this is the example of upright pyramid. We will see the example of inverted pyramid later. So this is a grazing food chain where you have more number of producers, less number of herbivores, still less number of carnivores, and very few top carnivores. So it can be, this type of pyramid can be convenient as counting is often simple task and can be done over the years to observe the changes. Okay, however it is difficult to count all the numbers, so sample lete hain, and some of the forms are difficult to count because they will be in juvenile form, some will be in adult form, right? Larval stage mein honge, few members will be in larval stage, few members will be in adult stage. Whether to count both, because adults they can reproduce, larvae they will not be able to reproduce. So counting the number has it has disadvantages of its own. Okay, so the typical grassland during the summer season has upright shape, since at the base we have many plants, less number of herbivores eating on those number of plants, still less number of carnivores eating on those herbivores, and so on. So this is upright pyramid. So however, during the summer in temperate forest, the base of the pyramid consists of few trees compared to the number of primary consumers, that is mostly insects. But the tree is large enough to support that population. Okay. So primary producers in forests are still able to support other trophic levels, though they are in small numbers. Now you see pyramid of numbers inverted. Here at the bottom you can see less number of producers are there, a tree which supports many birds, so parasitic food chain, right? So the single tree can support many birds, a single bird can support many bugs and lice, and each bug can support many hyperparasites. So you have a producer, herbivore, parasites, and hyperparasites. So as you go from bottom to top, the number increases. One tree can support many birds. One bird can support many parasites, and each parasite can support many hyperparasites. So it is inverted pyramids. So at the bottom you have less number of producers. As you move away, as you move to the top, the number of organism increases. So it is a parasitic food chain. Here there is no killing. Okay, so pyramid of numbers does not always have a regular pyramid because it does not consider the biomass of the organisms. यहाँ पर कहीं पर भी बायोमास और टोटल वेट हम लोग कंसिडर नहीं कर रहे हैं, वी आर जस्ट कंसिडरिंग द नंबर ऑफ इंडिविजुअल्स, we are not considering the biomass. So an inverted pyramid of numbers can be found in ecosystem where the community contains a few producers with large biomass, like tree, it has a very huge biomass, it can support small number of consumers. Oh, sorry, it can support large number of consumers. So you have a single tree supporting many birds, each bird can support many parasites, and each parasite can support many hyperparasites. So it is a parasitic food chain where we have inverted pyramid of numbers. Remember, where do you have inverted pyramid of numbers? In the parasitic food chain. So here it is. A single producers can, a single tree can support many birds, fruit eating birds. Each bird might again have many parasites, and each parasite might have many hyperparasites that are microorganisms. Okay. Okay, so there can be more parasites than the host they feed on because individual parasite has very small biomass. So each host can support many parasites. All right. So this is inverted pyramid of numbers. Grazing food chain, you have normal pyramid, upright pyramid. Then you have pyramid of biomass. Again, in the pyramid of biomass, you can have upright pyramid and inverted pyramid, both. In the biomass also, you will have this type of pyramid. So the pyramid of biomass indicates total mass of the organism in each trophic level. So you add the mass of all the organisms in each trophic level. How do you do that? So you count the number of organisms, how many are there in the trophic level, and you multiply it with average biomass of individual. So suppose there are 100 individuals and each individual weighs 5 kg. So total biomass is 500 kg. At average weight of each individual is 5 kg. There are total 100 individuals in the trophic level. So total biomass of the trophic level will be 500 kg. Okay. So that is how you calculate it. So you count the total number of individuals and multiply it with average biomass of individual. So that will give you the biomass of entire trophic level. Right. So period of biomass in grazing food chain. At the bottom, you have plants. So their biomass is very large compared to the upper trophic level. So because the number of individuals is also large in case of your grazing food chain. So usually this type of pyramid is largest at the bottom and gets smaller as we go up. But again, exceptions are there. That is your inverted pyramid. We will see the exception. So generally it is upright. So biomass of one trophic level is calculated by multiplying the number of individuals with average biomass of individual. How many individuals are there and each individual ka average mass kitna hai, you multiply, you will get the biomass of each trophic level. Okay. So this type of pyramid, this is the upright. Again, exception is there. So that exception we will see. This is upright pyramid. In a grazing food chain, generally you have upright. So this type of ecological pyramid solves many problems. That is in the pyramid of numbers. So as it shows more accurate representation of the amount of energy present at each trophic level. So pyramid of numbers does not give you the entire idea. So parasites can be larger in number compared to the host, but they do not have that biomass. So it does not accurately represent how much amount of energy is present in the each trophic level. So that problem is solved by the pyramid of biomass. Okay, and pyramid of biomass also depends upon at what time of the year you have taken the data. So during the summer season when there is showers, the biomass will be very, the total amount of biomass will be very huge because of plenty of water is available, plants will grow. Right. During the dry season, the biomass will be less. Right. At what time you are taking the biomass, that is also important. Okay. So you will not count all the organisms, you will take a sample, then extrapolate. Okay. So it also depends upon when you're taking the biomass of an animal, breeding season, that is also taken into consideration. Then pyramid of biomass, upright, just you saw. So for most ecosystems on the land, pyramid of biomass has a huge base of primary producers. And as you move to the higher trophic levels, the biomass level reduces. Okay. So the biomass of the next trophic level, that is primary consumers, is less than producers. Biomass of the next trophic level is even less, right? So it is upright. Now, exception is there. Pyramid of biomass where you have inverted pyramid. Now this you will see in aquatic food chain. So pyramid of biomass are almost always upright in shape as the biomass diminishes along the food chain. As you move to the upper trophic level, the biomass diminishes as energy is released in the form of CO2 and water or heat energy, right? Exception is here where you have aquatic food chain. So an exception to this rule is found in marine ecosystems where the zooplanktons have a larger biomass than phytoplanktons. So phytoplanktons are at the bottom. These are the producers. Zooplanktons, they have higher biomass than phytoplanktons. So why? First of all, phytoplanktons, they have short lifespan. They have very short lifespan, right? And as soon as they are born, they are produced, right? They are eaten away immediately. So they have high turnover number. They have very high turnover. So their lifespan is short and they reproduce fast. But as soon as they are reproduced, they're eaten away immediately by zooplankton. So at any point of time, the number of phytoplanktons will be less. So how do you measure the biomass? You calculate the number and multiply it by the average weight of the individual, right? So at any point of time, you will see less biomass of the phytoplanktons because they're eaten away immediately and they have very short lifespan. So number of individuals will be less. So they will multiply fast. As soon as they are born, they will carry on photosynthesis and immediately eaten away by zooplankton. So at any point of time, you see the number of individuals or the biomass of the phytoplanktons will be less than the zooplanktons. Zooplanktons accumulate biomass. They will eat more phytoplanktons and slowly they will increase the biomass. But as the phytoplanktons are, they die and they are again reproduced. So at any point of time, they are small in number, but this reproduction and death and again reproduction and death, this happens at a faster rate. So they can support zooplanktons. So phytoplanktons, they have very high turnover. They have a very short lifespan, but they reproduce at a faster rate and they are eaten away immediately as soon as they are produced. So zooplanktons, they accumulate larger biomass than phytoplanktons. So same way, zooplanktons are eaten by smaller fish and they will accumulate larger biomass than zooplanktons. So this is your inverted pyramid of biomass. So this happens in the aquatic ecosystem. So because of their larger turnover, they can support zooplanktons. Phytoplanktons, they reproduce at a faster rate, so they can support zooplankton. The reproduction rate is fast, their death rate is also fast. They die or they are eaten away immediately. They support large number of zooplanktons, and in turn, zooplanktons, they have a higher biomass. So zooplanktons are eaten away by small fish because their lifespan is larger. Zooplankton, they live longer. and they accumulate mass by eating phytoplankton. Same way, small fish, they live even longer than the zooplankton, so they accumulate more. So biomass calculation method is you count the number of individuals, how many are there, into their average weight. So whenever you count, there will be small number of phytoplanktons, but they maintain the rate of reproduction. So they multiply faster and they die also faster. So at any point of time, you will see less number, but because of their higher reproduction rate, they can support the population of zooplankton. So this is inverted pyramid of biomass. So here the pyramid of biomass has small base with consumer mass at any instant exceeding the producer biomass. So zooplanktons have higher biomass than the phytoplanktons. So that is why it has inverted shape. So this is because phytoplanktons replace the biomass at such a rapid rate. They have a very high turnover rate and short lifespan. So they can support zooplanktons. They are less in number at any point of time, but the reproduction rate is so fast that they can support the zooplankton number. So the ecosystem is not unstable. So it is not unstable. It functions because the rate of production by the phytoplankton is very high, constantly replenishing the food supply to support a larger zooplankton population. So the essence is a small base of fast growing and rapidly consumed producers can sustain a large mass of slow growing consumers. So your zooplanktons are slow growing, their lifespan is even longer. So phytoplanktons can support them because phytoplanktons reproduce at a faster rate. Okay, so that is inverted pyramid of biomass. So this is the last. Okay. Pyramid of energy. So pyramid of energy is always upright because highest energy is present in the producers. So 10% of it will be transferred to the primary consumers. So out of that, only 10% will be transferred to the secondary consumers and so on, because 90% of the energy that is utilized, some of it will be utilized for metabolic activity, because organism also has to survive, it has to do activities. So some of the energy will be used in that form and rest of it will be lost in the form of heat. Only 10% will be transferred to the next stage. So this was given by Riemann 10% rule, Riemann Lindman. Okay, so he gave this concept. So pyramid of energy shows the amount of energy trapped per unit area in a given time period at each stage of food chain. Okay, so these are always upright because as you move to the higher trophic level, these pyramids are always upright. As energy is lost along the food chain, so you cannot have, that is why you cannot have more than 4 to 5 steps, because only 10% of energy will be transferred to the next level, right? So each level in the pyramid will be roughly 1/10 in size of the preceding level. So only 10% of the energy will be transferred to the next level. So suppose sunlight ka, so whatever energies the plants are getting from the sunlight, only 1 to 2% will be accumulated. It will be utilized for photosynthesis. So suppose you have photosynthesized and you have 100% energy at the bottom. So producers have 100% energy. So only 10% of it will be, because plants also utilize energy for their metabolic activity, right? So 90% will be spent for respiration, for other processes, transpiration, respiration, other process. It will use 90% of the energy, and it will use majority of the energy, and some of the energy will be lost in the form of heat. Only 10% will be transferred to the next trophic level. Now this insect, it will also use the energy for its own metabolic activity. It will roam around, it will find a mate, it will find the food. So for walking, jumping activity, it requires energy, and some of it will be lost in the form of heat. Only 10% of it will be transferred to the next stage. So again, there also, because it consumes, why only very less amount of energy, how it can survive? Because it eats large number of individuals. The frog can eat many grasshoppers in a day. So for its energy needs, it will require more energy, right? So it will eat more number of individuals. That is why it is able to function. Now, a snake can eat more number of frogs. So because only 0.1% of energy is transferred to the tertiary consumer, but a snake will eat more number of frogs or other insects also. So it will meet its energy needs by eating more in number. So only 10% of the energy will be transferred to the next trophic level. So at any trophic level, these organisms, when they die, their body will be decomposed by the decomposers. Right. So energy of pyramid reflects law of thermodynamics. With the conversion of solar energy to chemical energy and heat energy at each trophic level, and with the loss of energy being depicted at each transfer to another trophic level. So some amount of wastage will definitely be there. 100% conversion नहीं होता है. Some amount of heat or some amount of energy will be lost when your conversion of energy from one form to another form. Last, that is over. Fine. So this is the last slide. So pyramid of energy, it is always upright because there is only 10% of energy will be transferred to the next trophic levels. 90% is utilized for its own metabolic activity, and it is also lost in the form of heat. So that is your pyramid of energy. So we have completed ecosystem ecology. From the next session, we will do biomes. Okay, so we'll discuss biomes. After biomes, we'll go for succession and nutrient cycling. So it may take 3 to 4 classes. Ecology will be completed and we'll start biodiversity. Okay, that will be all. Thank you very much.